Imagine it. Step 1. This is great. It all starts with an idea. Now, of course, you can skip this bit if you've woken up this morning with an amazing picture in your head of a story for children in your mind's eye. If you can see your main character, a setting which wraps around the character like a second skin, and you know exactly what's going to happen in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. If it's kind of like pressing play and watching a movie, you might want to forge right ahead. If you're not entirely sure about what you're writing about, yet you've already envisaged the delight of the first recipient's face as they get your book, keep watching. Story writing itself is simply layering, one layer at a time, reflecting each part of the process, from the generation of an idea, the actual work of getting the words onto the paper, and then the multiple layers of editing and finally the end product. We are going to explore a toolbox of extraction techniques designed to give you a range of options for when you want different approaches, when you're in different moods. For example, when I'm tired, I love doodle drawing, or even better, watching the clouds in the sky. If I'm feeling particularly task-orientated, I like writing list after list after list. Today, we're going to explore brainstorming, clouds and squiggles, Frankenstein, problems, what happened today, reference material, music and sound, previously written stories, and the lightning bolt. Okay, regardless of what tools and techniques, you have to get into the right frame of mind. Breathe. Yes, I'm going to teach you how to breathe. Picture your head as a high-powered, state-of-the-art video recorder. All the thoughts, sights, sounds you've ever experienced are there, right there in your head. It's just a matter of accessing it, unlocking the files. The first step is to relax. There's nothing worse than being given a blank piece of paper with a tight time frame and being told, right, so let's do this nicely. Let's breathe. I can't resist. First, a hand pose. This is from yoga. It's a mudra. It is called the Gyan mudra, and it is all about wisdom. Put the tip of your thumb and the tip of your pointer together. The benefits of this, you see, increases the air element within the body, boosts enthusiasm, initiativeness, and creative thinking. It enhances your cognitive process and memory, and it's a great tool to ward off drowsiness and lethargy. Now breathe. I want you to close your eyes. Use your finger to press down on one side of your nose and breathe in, listening to the sound of the air moving through your head. As you exhale, press the other side. Keep alternating deep breaths until you feel very, very relaxed. I know, it was a simple exercise, but I use it to start each and every writing session myself. You see, it serves to accomplish a few things for you. Firstly, it's a foreign exercise and it might make you feel uncomfortable. And that is great because as writers, we often feel uncomfortable in the process of writing, illustrating or sharing, and we have to get used to it. Additionally, it serves as a circuit breaker, a way to distinguish there is a change in the order of the day and you're no longer a worker, a mother, a father, etc. Rather, you're a writer and you're an illustrator. And finally, it allows you to relax. And relaxing is the best way to allow for the flow of ideas. Great, so we're here now ready to do one of my favourite warm-up exercises, blind contour drawing. Whenever I try this with children or adults alike, everyone feels particularly uncomfortable. And it comes from having seen an amazing documentary called the Human Body series, where Robert Winston actually put electrodes onto or beside an artist's eye and recorded where an artist looks at their subject and then onto the drawing page versus a non-artist. An artist actually looks at the subject over 80% of the time and merely glances at the paper to make a mark. A non-artist, or someone who says, I can't draw, actually looks at the paper over 80% of the time and merely glances at the subject. We're going to push you right out of your comfort zone with this and look at the subject only, and we're not going to look at the piece of paper at all. Sounds difficult? It's actually really easy. The trick is that you have to pretend that the tip of your pencil is connected directly to your pupil. So if you look from left to right or right to left on your screen, the pencil moves that way along the page and then back again. And that's what we're going to do. A contour drawing is where you follow the lines of an object that you're looking at. So we're going to do a contour drawing of our hand. This means following around the obvious lines that we can see that make up the hand. You must remember, we are not looking for a finished product that is a drawing of a hand. Rather, this is an exercise to help you see and to help you slip into your right brain. Okay, let's get started. With a piece of paper on your desk, it is useful to slightly anchor it down. Just tape it lightly so it doesn't slip around the place. Okay, then pencil in hand, pose with your other hand. Hold it in a position that is not normally a hand, if that makes sense. That we know is a hand. We have a palm, it's attached to an arm, there's a thumb, 4 fingers. If you do that, it's actually easier because you have to cruise around the contours of your hand. So let's get started. I'm putting the pencil in the center of the page just to give me an anchor point. I'm going to turn slightly and look up so that I don't cheat. And this is how I'm going to spend the time. Before I forget, it is really useful to record how long you can concentrate for. So glance at the clock, at the big hand, as your big hand gets to the top, start, and when you cheat or feel the need to look at the paper, look at the clock again and simply record the time. Okay, back we go. Into the center, hold your hand. I'm going to start at my wrist and I'm following the wrinkles around. Now really you wouldn't be talking because it's harder to concentrate, but that's a crease on the side of my palm, and now I'm at the little finger. I'm over the knuckle, down there, and then to my nails, and then up to the other finger, and so on. I'm so tempted to look because I know that you're seeing the drawing thinking, my goodness, this is not a hand at all. So I don't know how long I'm going to last for. Hang on, here we go. And around the pointer, back, and to my thumb, to the first knuckle joint, up, to the nail, down and down. Oh, that's me. Hey, there we go. So how is that for a drawing? I know when you look at that, you're going to just think that is outrageous. But what is really fun is over time, as you practice this, you'll be able to concentrate for longer and longer periods of time. And the marks that you make, a deep mark with more pressure, meaning darker parts of the hand, or lighter feathery marks, meaning the outside or where the light is, will give you an idea that you can push in and out of the paper. Additionally, you will look and maybe you'll even see something in there that you might like to embellish. But either way, it is nothing more than a warm-up exercise. So you're ready to go on to the next thing. Awesome. You're all over it. You've done enough breathing, we've done some drawing, and you're certainly now in the right space to be creative. Now I want to show you some wonderful ways to stimulate this creativity, and you may use one or all of these idea generating exercises from the Ideas Toolbox. The Ideas Toolbox. Brainstorming. A brainstorm is defined as a brief psychological disturbance. Brainstorming is to think quickly and creatively and to have an intensive group discussion in order to generate ideas and to usually stimulate problem solving. So this is one of those things that's much more fun if you're with a group of people. The success of brainstorming relies on instinctive responses to a question. For example, if I say red, you might straight away say stop or lady beetle. Recording the first thing that comes into your mind is really important. Again, it's much more fun in a group. Okay, so step 1, appoint a scribe. It's useful to have someone in front of the group who's not involved recording the responses. Step 2, start with the stimuli. Let's create a list as quickly as possible. And I'm going to ask these guys to help me. Quick, shout out some ideas. What makes a body?
A brain.
Beautiful. A head.
Eyes.
I'm loving this. Arms.
Ears.
Hands.
Nose.
Body.
Fingers.
What about legs?
Toes.
Torso. All right, so we've got a list of at least 10 things. Other examples of stimuli might be lists of all of the things that children worry about, find fun to do, hate about a birthday party or a significant event, stuff that they like about a birthday party or a significant event. What about stuff that they have to call their own, or things that they find the most challenging about having a sibling? Maybe stuff that they're scared of or hesitant to try. Finally, what about what they imagine they would like to be doing? Any of those things. We're back to story writing now. Choose one example from the list. Is there a story in this? For example, siblings. Children often find that having a sibling can be a nightmare, but they may realise that they can't imagine not having them either. Okay, now brainstorming. That's tricky when you're by yourself, but really it's about creating lists that you can come back to any time in the future when you're feeling bereft of an idea. I know a teacher in a classroom that has one of those lovely boxes with the cards in it, and as with her group of children, she's brainstormed those lists. Then, when they have to write on command, she sends them to the back of the classroom to get one of the lists, and then they write to any of those issues. So brainstorming, it's a great thing to do at night with your family or with a group of friends, but collecting those folders and ideas of lists will stand you in good stead in the future. Okay, our next idea source, clouds and squiggles. Great. We're dipping into our Ideas Toolbox now, and one of the ideas that we can use is looking at clouds. I'm hoping that every single one of you has given yourself time to be outside at some point, lying on your back, watching the clouds on a spring or autumn day, and watching the characters that evolve as the clouds gallop by, whether it be clowns or juggling elephants or swords or washing machines or dragons. It doesn't matter what you're seeing. But the idea that somehow you can use your right brain to glimpse a whole with just only a few shapes as a precursor or an idea that prompts you. Now, we can't always be outside. We can't always conjure up a cloudy day, but we can kind of create that idea at our desktop, which is really fabulous. Now, one way to start is to have a really lovely, beautiful blank piece of paper in front of you. You need to create the first edges or marks that belong to your cloud, okay? And you don't want to spend a lot of time or energy on this, just a few seconds. If I had you with me in a lovely classroom, I'd say go and then stop, and you would have that short amount of time to create those marks. So if I do it myself, I have to be a little bit disciplined. So if I think go, and I'm already going to stop myself. Now I've got very few marks on a page, and just like looking at the clouds going by, it is quite useful if you turn them around, and you've got to try and see what you can see. Now, I've made this quite tricky for myself accidentally. Maybe I should have practiced a few more instead. I've got a thing either about people's faces or about birds. I don't know where it's come from, but in this drawing or in my cloud, I can actually see a bird at flight leaving a pond. How do you see it from there, or what do you do next? You simply start adding lines which embellish the drawing and bring the character so that you can see it or other people can see it. So straight away I'm going to add in the horizon line or the water line. This is one of the wings in flight, and this is one of the other wings, the body. And here is the bird's head. So I'm simply just adding in lines where I believe that they could go. Now, it's not anatomically correct, but that's not our objective. We're looking to try and create a character who hasn't been seen before. I'm quite enjoying this swan. Swan, it's a swan. Now, once you have some rudimentary lines set down, it's useful to dip into other drawing techniques to show where the light source is, shadow, other information. So you can start just shading, cross-hatching, showing the base of the animal, whatever you need to actually give it some depth. I'm hoping you can see the swan already in this. Maybe not. An eye makes a difference. And I think we're going to put a crown on her just for no reason. Once your character starts coming to life, it is actually very, very useful to actually name them. And I think the first thing that pops in my mind is Cassandra. I don't know why. Start making notes around it. I know she's in a lake, about to take flight. Now, if Cassandra became a character of your story, you have your setting, you've met your character, and maybe the problem is induced by about taking flight. But really, it's simply a matter of finding some character that you haven't seen before. And as easily as that, we've created Cassandra. The next idea source, Frankenstein. Another exercise from our Ideas Toolbox is the Frankenstein exercise. Now don't worry, I'm not going to have you like Mary Shelley with her main character ghoulishly going out into graveyards and doctors' mortuaries to find body parts. Simply we're going to create the body parts on paper. Earlier I wrote a list of all of the parts of the human being that make us human, the characteristics, the physical characteristics. So we know that a human being has a head, a neck, a body, arms, fingers, legs and toes. And the head, of course, is about hair, eyes, nose, mouth and ears. Now it's our left brain. Hands together, it's our left brain, which actually tells us about these individual body parts. But it's our right brain which actually enables us to see the whole, the gestalt. Okay, so it means that when a human walks towards you, you don't say, oh my goodness, that's a human. They've got hair, eyes, nose, ears, mouth, all of those body parts. But rather you look at the whole. So creating this character, let's go and get our body parts. Now to the crew, I need your help because this is a brainstorming exercise. If I say head, I want you to come up with the first word that comes to mind, okay? Now at home, when you're doing this, do it at the dinner table or when you've got a group of people around you and create some alternate lists to work on in a nice quiet time by yourself. So let's get started. Head.
Round.
Round, perfect. And their neck.
Long.
Long, perfect. Body.
Flabby.
Oh, this is great. Arms.
Hairy.
You are both on the spot. I'm glad there's two of them here. Fingers.
Pointy.
Perfect. Legs.
Lengthy.
They can be. I can't spell it, but lengthy, that'll do. Toes.
Chubby.
Chubby. Great. Okay, up to the head now. Tell me the first thing that you think of when you think of hair.
Frizzy.
Frizzy. Eyes.
Bright.
Bright. Beautiful. Nose.
Pointy.
Nice. Mouth.
Thin.
Thin. Ears.
Wide.
Awesome. Okay, so we've actually collected all of our body parts. I know that's a little bit hard to read on these points that are in front of you, But this is just an exercise, remember, not a finished product. So we've got our body parts. It wasn't too much of a ghoulish process. But what I'm going to get you to do now is actually draw this character. We've never met this person before, which makes it quite an interesting process. But if we think we've got a round head and a long neck and a flabby body maybe and hairy arms, well, we'll get to the hairy arms. And, oh, we've got pointy fingers, but I didn't do anything with the hands. I'm going to do this quickly. You don't need to be subjected to my drawing. Legs lengthy, so they're not even on the page with its chubby toes. But its hair is frizzy, which is awesome. Okay, and bright eyes. Nice bright eyes, and nice round eyes, aren't they? And a pointy nose. And a thin mouth, but big wide ears. Okay, so you can see why I need lots of reference material, which we'll talk about later. When we look at this outrageous character with her long, long neck, and I say her, I don't know why, but instinctively I think it's a her. So we just then come over. We've spent no time developing that at all. But come back over it again and spend more time with the character. Embellish it. Maybe more hair. Okay, fixing the eyes. So we know she's probably got eyebrows, but they're not very pretty. But with that pointy nose, I just want to put a big wart on the end and a thin, tight mouth. Now we know you have a thin, tight mouth when you're angry or disappointed. So I'm going to say she's disappointed about something. Maybe she's disappointed about the wart on her nose. On her nose. Okay, now a flabby body. It's a bit tricky to think about how you could show a flabby body. But let's put her in a nice big wide dress. A dress? It's looking interestingly more and more like a doll. Do you think? I'm going to change it now. I'm going to the doll idea. I promise you these are not pre-prepared. Now, I'm going to make her arms flop behind her because she's a floppy doll. Okay. So thinking of a story character that you've just created and her hair can get longer and longer is why on earth would a little doll be disappointed? Has she been left behind somewhere? Maybe on the shelf? Maybe it's Christmas time. Maybe her owner has left her at the beach. The thing is, when you're looking at something as crazy as this, and I am now thinking about a little doll and how it would feel to be the last one on a shelf at Christmas time, and what you would do as the day ended and the night became darker, I guess, and wondering if she would take any consolation in the fact that Santa might have to pop back to the children's store and finds her on the shelf. Or maybe a little girl comes into the store and sees just the doll that she's looking for. I'm not quite sure where the story is going, but you can see that a story can come out of something as simple and as quick an exercise as that. Our next idea source. Look around the world for commonly recognised problems. Okay, so from a marketing perspective, constant discussion revolves around the product development and sales opportunity which are born from solving problems. Blah, blah, blah. Except that the same rule applies to storytelling. At the moment, there is a movement, for example, for asking for diversity in books. News stories, especially ongoing ones like the refugee crisis in Europe, or local stories like a flood or a fire, can create a platform for a story. If you follow parenting blogs, you may see the rise and rise of a particular issue. All of a sudden, there will be an unending list of problems which may need solving. How do you solve the problems of demonstrating love to disobedient children, deal with death, or support a relationship with grandparents. Books like Where the Wild Things Are, Jenny Angel, and Dancing with Grandma each considered these issues. Now, please don't think, well, they've covered the issue, because in a different voice, in a different time, in different circumstances, you may deliver different support to different people. It's a big world out there. So what problems do you know that are out there just waiting to be solved? What problems have your children experienced or talked to you about recently? What problems did you face as a child? Are they still relevant to children today? Are they of interest to children today? List everything that comes to mind, and then when you're ready, go back to that list, see what resonates with you, and identify the seed of a beautiful story idea. Another idea source, your very own experience. Now, whether this is a first-hand experience with a bully or an adventure on a family holiday, all stories contain an element of our own experiences. It's difficult to escape the influence of our own experience, and as it colours our world, it's so much easier to work with it than against it. By creating a list of topics or thoughts or concepts, when you're bereft of ideas, refer to it, and it's like having a list of human characteristics that add to that character you created in the Frankenstein exercise. Then simply start writing. It's an exercise which not only helps you connect with the right-hand side of your brain, but it also relies on instinctively responding to the stimuli. And yet, together, constructively, it can actually help you come up with many promising thoughts. Now for your brainstorming list. What made you laugh today? What did you think of while you ate your lunch? Where have you been today? What is the earliest memory you recall? If you weren't you, who would you be and what would you be doing? What was the happiest moment of your life? What was the saddest moment of your life? What were you most proud of doing as a child? You are tapping into your own world for references, for possible characters or scenarios which may inspire you. An opening about a gross, sticky, smelly banana in a lunchbox could be the beginning of a very funny story, as could the dreaminess of remembering tasting a mango for the very first time. When looking for a story idea, you may source your own personal experience from an idea from your own diary. Reading about a torrid experience whilst in a totally different frame of mind and recording your thoughts again may produce a very interesting insight. The diary entry itself could be the story, or it could be used as a launching point, or rather a departure point for a new story. The magic, of course, about using your own experiences is that it is a truism. It comes from your heart, and it is a great reference point to come to. Another idea source, reference files, collecting images. This is brilliant for the hunters and gatherers. Images can provide a source for a story idea. Have a collection of magazine pictures, personal photos, or even random photos at hand. With the image in front of you, try to make up a story in a quick as a flash response. The more instant the response, the more instinctive it is, and instinct usually produces the best stories. Okay, so I'm going to share an example with you. Here is a little boy who was in a telecommunications advertising campaign, and he was the launching point for a short story. I couldn't help but wonder who he was and where he was from. His clothes are rather old-fashioned, and this led me to think of a life, or what a life would be for a little boy growing up in the 1950s. Who was his mother, I wondered, and this I answered as I wrote the short story 2 for 1. It's a really simple, enjoyable thing to set up a reference folder. You simply peruse magazines at your leisure, rip out pages, or gently snip them if that approves to you. And whatever the method, whatever your style, there's no need to intellectualize this process. Don't ask yourself why when you choose an image, just let yourself respond to it. The collection can also include images of words which are accumulated in the same fashion. See, the thing is, when you're trying to find an idea to write about, all you have to do is flick through the images. It's an exercise which is akin to looking at the clouds. See what you can see. It's as easy as that. Our next idea source, music. A gorgeous exercise which can create magic is writing to music. You can go beyond writing with the music playing in the background. The object is to create a list of words which match the music. When you do the same exercise with a paintbrush in your hand and a colour palette ready, there are short marks for sporadic short notes, long swirls for melodies, red for anger or love, or so on. You might have a list of songs which are your go-to, which you know provoke a powerful response from within. For me, anything from Donovan Frankenstein makes me feel upbeat yet relaxed. The Australian crawl song, Reckless, still polishes me off completely, and I return to being a 12-year-old not quite sure how to process the world around me. And as for Don McLean's American Pie, well, it just induces such a state in me that after listening to it, and if I begin to write, I find that friendship only is my focus. I guess when it comes to music, it's so personal that I can't show you what to do. I can't even tell you what to do. I can only suggest that it will enhance your writing experience considerably. Ideas source. Another one, sound. You may not believe it, but this is a true story from a workshop I did with Year 3 students years ago. I was talking to them about the potential of sound being able to trigger thoughts which may become a launching point for a story. They closed their eyes, we did the breathing exercise, and I asked them to listen. Just listen. Just then, I'm not exaggerating, from the building site next door, there was a sharp, resonant thunk of metal hitting metal. We brainstormed a couple of ideas, including being a miner, a sculptor, a building site falling down, a puppy being stuck, a new house. My goodness, there was something or a topic that we could all write to. Sound, like smell, provokes a deep internal instinctive response. We are afraid of a horn, love the sound of laughter, terrified of lightning, cringe at the metal crunching in a car accident. Whatever our personal experiences, the sounds which resonate around us when we simply close our eyes can honestly help us provide an idea. All right, you thought it was over, but we've still got more idea sources. Previously written stories. In the indefatigable Christopher Booker's definitive text, The 7 Basic Plots, he explains the first written story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is about overcoming the monster. The kingdom of Uruk had fallen under the terrible shadow of a great evil monster, Humbaba. The hero, Gilgamesh, armed and willing, set out on a long and dangerous journey. He confronts the evil, and during a titanic struggle, it seems as though all is lost. But by some supernatural feat, Gilgamesh kills the monster, returns to the kingdom triumphant. I reckon it sounds like a blurb for a James Bond movie. Or Beowulf. Well, and if you thought so, it is because it is the same storyline. Storylines, therefore, that have been written before can provide a framework for writers today. Now listen, this is not a recommendation to copy someone else's work. Rather, it's just the realization that even in the process of demonstrating you are incredibly creative, the basic plot will predate you. Sometimes a spark of inspiration for a new story can ignite your imagination when reading an already published children's picture book. It might come while reading a new or favourite book to a child or a grandchild. Or you could spend a pleasurable afternoon at your local library reading a wide selection of picture books and waiting for inspiration to strike you. This is not about plagiarism, as I said before, but rather using the inspiration gained from another's work to generate a unique idea for yourself. It's really important that you understand the Copyright Act of 1966, and it's useful to understand if you're worried about infringing copyright, because if you're just closely mimicking someone else's story, do a little bit of research. Under copyright law, the author does retain copyright even after they've died. You will have to wait 70 years before it becomes the public domain. The real joy in exploring previously written stories is that you have the opportunity to create a departure point for your own story. using the creativity like a diving board. You get to bounce, you get to be liberated, you get to feel the air through your hair as you create something that is truly yours and truly unique. The last idea source in our toolbox is the lightning bolt. Okay, so sometimes we don't even need to know where an idea comes from or why it is even there. Usually, more often than not, it appears like a bolt out of the blue when you're particularly relaxed and probably happily right-brained anyway. An idea will literally appear in your head. Okay, so it comes out of the blue. The tip for you though is to always keep a pen and paper on hand. I have a notebook beside my bed. I may wake in the middle of the night having had a particularly interesting dream, which continues playing like a movie. There's no need to try and work out why. It's more that I need to reproduce what that story was, and very quickly before the idea goes. Launching out of bed and cracking your toes as you collect the door frame on the way to the computer doesn't help either. Just write down some key words on a notebook and happily roll over and go back to sleep. The lightning bolt idea is so extraordinary because it can happen at any time, anywhere. It is about recording the idea so that you have it as a story point later on. I know a writer who keeps a paint pen in their car so she can write on the glass of the window beside her. Another person makes a quick phone call to their own answering machine. I love it when I walk with someone and I actually can tell someone the idea as I'm going. Because usually if I try and repeat it in my head, it's a bit like remembering the list for the shopping, and it doesn't quite work. The magic of recording the idea is that you have it for a later date when you have time. And like we were discussing with everything earlier, the whole process is layering. So however or irrespective of how the idea comes to you from that idea toolbox, it is already yours and it's already truly creative and it's already worth a story. Okay, here we are, finally. Breathing again. Just as we started with breathing, I think we should finish with breathing. You have a whole plethora of ideas rolling around in your head, and now is the time to pick one that instinctively resonates with you, because now it's time to crack on and we're going to start writing.